All right, welcome into February. That is right. By January, the longest damn month of the year. That means we're a little bit closer to the madness that is known as March. So a lot of college hoops here still to go, including 65 games here tonight to choose from. We've got it narrowed down to a couple. Talk about some of the games we think there are edges on. And of course, couple of best bets with two of the best at WagerTalk as we welcome in Adam Trigger, ready to roll here tonight, getting it going fresh off, I believe, a 5% winner last night in college hoops. Looking to parlay that into tonight, as well as double R1L Steve Merrill continuing to roll in college hoops, as well as the NBA. So a lot to go over here in this 65 game slate, and we'll start Trig this game back and forth here between the Pride and the Seawolves. Hofstra taking on Stony Brook in a very, very interesting one. Hofstra laying 7.5. Are you buying the Pride at home here?
So, Joe, they call this the Battle for Long Island. This is a regional rivalry, and I bought the Pride a couple weeks ago. This was a 5% play for me. The last meeting, which was a couple weeks ago, it was at Stony Brook. I was on Hofstra, laid the 3.5 in that game, and Hofstra kind of pulled away and covered, won the game by 6. Felt like they probably could have won by more. There was a stretch early in the first half where I believe they gave up like a 22-2 run, completely gave a lead away, and then built it back up and ended up winning by 6. And yeah, I think that they're probably going to win, and they're probably going to cover this number, Joe. Hofstra, since Stony Brook has come to Division One, which was back in 1999, is 16-5 in this rivalry, and now we get to see it twice a year with Stony Brook moving to the CAA. Stony Brook moved into the Colonial last year. Hofstra won both. They played earlier this year at Stony Brook. Hofstra won that game. And I was impressed with Hofstra in the first meeting. I felt like they got pretty much whatever they wanted to offensively, shot 51.8% from the field, and did it on the road where Hofstra's really struggled this year. Their offense has been far better at home. They've been far better at home, 6-2. While they've been pretty poor on the road. So while Stony Brook could make the adjustment and maybe like to defend Hofstra a little bit more, I find it hard to believe they're going to be able to do that just because of the way they play, which I'll get into in a minute. Stony Brook, the way they want to play offensively is a lot of ISO. So it's like I felt like that was really kind of a limiting factor for them in the first game, where Hofstra seemed to be able to force them into the outside shot and not really allowing them to get to the rim. And it really sort of messed with Stony Brook. If you take that one little stretch in the first half where they had this spurt where they made everything and went on a 22-2 run, that Stony Brook offense really wasn't very effective at all. And the Stony Brook offense kind of comes and goes as Tyler Stevenson more goes. So I referenced the fact that Stony Brook likes to play a lot of ISO. Basically, it's a lot of create off the dribble, not a ton of ball movement. They were 5 for 22 as a team from 3 in that first game. And that's because a lot of those threes were contested because Stony Brook's not a terrible 3-point shooting team, but it's harder to make threes when they're all contested. And it just trickles down from Stevenson more. He sets the tone for that offense. In the first game, he was just 2 for 9 from the field. He only had 9 points. Couldn't really get off a good shot. I thought Hofstra did a really good job on him. And I don't really think I don't really think Stony Brook, Joe, has the counter to that. They are kind of what they are. The reason I think they were able to upset UNC Wilmington this past weekend, was because Wilmington kind of lets you play into that. They'll allow the ISO and try to defend the rim and whatnot. It was just a better matchup for Stony Brook, and they made the comeback and won the game in overtime. Hofstra comes off a loss. I thought Hofstra had played much better, prior to their little losing streak, and then of course they lose to Monmouth, who's a really scrappy team, and that was a road game. Now they're back at home. I like the matchup for Hofstra. Like I said, cash 5% in this matchup a couple weeks ago. I still think the matchup is great for the Pride here. Yeah, you've got to lay a little bit more of a premium 7.5. Probably why I didn't make my client card, at least not yet. but it's something I'm still considering adding as the day goes on. And I won't be surprised if Hofstra finds a way to pull away again. It's a good matchup for them. They've owned this rivalry, Joe. So I think Hofstra probably, wins again, and they most likely do it by margin.
Yeah, well, they handed Monmouth that win last game, turning it over 15 times, leading to 28 points. So, yeah, hold on to the ball, Hofstra, and you should have no problem running away from this Stony Brook squad. So, there's game number one, guys. Battle of Long Island. We'll head out west as another big battle out in the Pac-12 with double R1L Steve Merrill, Oregon USC. Merrill, interesting game here. Just when you thought Oregon may have turned a corner, they got healthy, and then they kind of been getting bulldozed. But USC, go figure. All that talent can't put it together. What are you doing this game here tonight? The big Pac-12 battle coming up.
Yeah, exactly 1 week ago, I was here on the show talking about Oregon. I used them as a free play on my page
Mm,
last Thursday night for everybody. They were back at home. I believe it was Arizona State, if I'm not mistaken, and they were off of 4 out of 5 road games. Arizona State had come off of 4 out of 5 home games. I mentioned that, the line had been adjusted a little bit too much based on recent results, and the Oregon Ducks got that nice home win by 19 points. Then they had a huge game on Saturday against Arizona, and they had the bad fortune of catching the
mm.
Wildcats off a loss as an 18-point favorite at Oregon State on that same Thursday night right before. So it was a bad spot for Oregon. They came up short. It was their first home loss, by the way, of the season last Saturday against a very good Arizona team. Now they travel, and the natural, inclination might be, hey, they're going to bounce back against a weaker USC team, as you said, that is struggling this season off of 5 straight losses. But I'm not sure that's the case. And I also think this line value is definitely with USC now. And you can point it out pretty easily by just looking at the recent games this season. These teams played already once this year, so this is a revenge spot for USC. But the bigger takeaway, it was just a month ago, December 28th, just a couple days over a month ago, and USC was a 3-point road underdog. Now, 1 month later, just a handful of games later, they're a 2.5-point home dog. So you can see that's a 3 to 4 point adjustment based on home court already that's not being factored in. And yes, USC has lost 5 straight recently here. They're not playing very good basketball, but I think there's plenty of reasons why they can hang in this game tonight on Thursday. First of all, Oregon is a weaker team on the road. You look at that earlier meeting, USC shot 33%. Oregon shot 40% from 3-point range. I think that'll even out a bit. And Oregon had a 32 to 15 free throw attempt advantage at home. So they're definitely getting the home whistle there in what is one of the strongest home courts. And once again, they'd won every game until Saturday against Arizona. So I think it's a step down here heading to the road. It's a little bit of a flat spot for Oregon after those 2 big home games, even after the loss. And the fact they already beat USC just a month ago could overlook the Trojans. So if the Trojans are going to get right and get back on track, and that's a big if, I do think it happens tonight. I like USC here plus 2.5. This game just missed my card. It's actually a free play that I posted on my page today at WagerTalk, and I do have another strong best bet tonight at 4% play at WagerTalk.com as well.
Yeah, Boogie Ellis, Isaiah Collier. That's the story for USC. They got to show up if they can. It's going to be an interesting one against Oregon at home here tonight. So, Pac-12 battle, guys. Love the Thursday slate because you get all those late games coming up out on the West Coast there for us degenerates on the East Coast. So, we do have a couple of best bets in a couple of games coming up. Do want to remind you, though, and welcome those of you joining us for the first time here on Wager Talk TV. Hit that subscribe button if you are new. And, of course, those of you joining us live here today on this very first day of February, we appreciate it. Hit that thumbs up, hit that like button, guys. We certainly appreciate you hanging with us as we send it back to the top and get ready for, well, we gave you a big enough game there in the Pac-12. It is time to bring this thing back to the mid-major level here. And I can't figure this damn Hampton team out, Trig. Every time we bet them early, they get blown out by 30. Now they're taking on in North Carolina A&T, which is not a great team, but they're great enough to what? Be laying 4 or 5 in this one against Hampton? What gives?
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. Hampton's a team I got to see play earlier this year. I felt like I had a pretty good beat on them for a while, and then I kind of was just like, man, even when they play good, they find a way to play as poorly as possible for 10 minutes to like ruin a good performance. I think that's like my biggest takeaway from Hampton. Like they're 0-9 in conference play right now. But I know that they haven't played bad enough to really justify being 0-9. It's just they have stretches where they like forget their game plan or it goes completely off the rails. One of them happened against NCAA earlier this year. It was a game that they pretty much had won and found a way to lose by a point in Hampton earlier this year. But you look at some of the numbers, Joe. I mean, this team scores 76.5 points per game. They have a decent field goal percentage. They rebound. They really do look good on offense at times. But I think what it comes down to is they've been really poorly coached. They don't handle the ball. They turn it over. They play zero defense. So it's become difficult to bet them. And it's probably the reason that this didn't go on my card right away when this number came up last night. Now, I found it interesting that this was bet down a little bit, and I wonder if that has to do with the status of Landon Glassbar for NCAA. He's by far their best player, 21.1 points per game. He didn't play against Drexel, so it could mean he's out again here. But either way, I just think that like Hampton's doing enough things right where they're going to get a result at some point. And I could see it coming in this game. Like these are two teams. So if you go back a couple weeks, we did this show and I gave out NCAA plus 3.5 on this show. And my rationale was, man, Hampton really shouldn't be laying 4 to anyone in this conference. And I kind of feel the same way about NCAA. Now they do have a better win-loss record, but I just don't know if they should be laying 4 to Hampton here, especially when Hampton pretty much had that game won. It was a Monday night game, standalone game at Hampton. I believe they lost right at the buzzer on some really like suspect final 2-minute type stuff. Couple turnovers. It was a game Hampton had, and they let slip away. Now NCAA, they do have some guys that can score. One of them being Glassbar. So if he's out, that really puts them up against it here. But Hampton can score enough, and that's one thing NCAA doesn't do particularly well is defend. Hampton's got guys like Jerry Dang who they don't play defense, but they can fill it up at a moment's notice, and they will score. So very similar to the first matchup. I just feel like it's going to be hard for either of these teams to pull away. And then you talk about like the potential of Glassbar not being available at all for NCAA. Where does their offense, kind of consistent offense come from if he's not on the floor? So when I add it all up, as much as I sort of have kind of pumped the brakes on wanting to get involved with Hampton, it just seems wild for them to be catching 5 in this matchup, knowing that A&T's best player might not go or could be compromised here. So when it's all said and done, I thought the number was too big. And this is probably the best one that hasn't made the client card yet. So I chose it as the best bet for the show. Hampton plus 5 seems like some value there with Glassbar for NCAA's question, being a little bit questionable for this game.
Yeah, well, you know what? The market is beginning to agree with you too. This thing opened up 6.5 in spots, down to 4.5 now. So market is moving in that direction with Hampton here tonight, guys. That's 7:00 Eastern time tip. And Trig, don't forget, Teller, I know you came off that big 5% outright winner last night, I believe, with Boise State handling business in the pit. What do you got backing that up here tonight?
Yeah, it was a nice win for Boise State. Got us out of Wednesday ahead. 3-0 on the 5% college basketball plays for January. I don't have a 5% play tonight, but I do have 2 plays, both 4% that are packaged together. And I may add a third. And if I do add a third client play, it'll just go onto that package as well. I'm actually leaning toward that being the case. And then I gave you 2 games that I'm considering. So like Hofstra and Hampton, if they don't end up making my card, will have just missed. So, kind of trying to figure out. It's one of those days, Joe, where I like quite a bit, and I'm just trying to figure out how much to add and stuff. But yeah, already 2 locked and loaded on that package, and I'm going to put anything that I played today on that package. So you basically that 2-for-1 is going to get you my whole card for Thursday.
A lot of games to choose from. 65 on the card here, guys. Head over to his page at WagerTalk.com. Partner up there. As plenty of ways to cash a few tickets here tonight in college hoops. Steve Merrill knows that. Merrill, limited card in the association tonight, but Plenty of college hoops to go here. So your best bet is a game we were talking about just off air before we came on, and we're all scratching our heads at this one team. But before you dive into Marshall and Old Dominion, tell us what you got rolling over at WagerTalk.com tonight.
Yeah, we always talk about taking a long-term investment approach, and this season once again is showing that nobody has won more units in college and pro basketball combined since the season started in October. I'm number one, already up 20 games above 500 in college and pro hoops. So we're only halfway through each season. Got a couple more months, March Madness around the corner, 4 to 5 months of the NBA playoffs still to come. So I really highly recommend checking out my page on a daily basis for the best bets. And by the way, NBA we cashed last night. Also, I did 2 free play videos, and both of those cashed with free plays here as well. Small NBA card tonight, so check out the NBA show. There's 4 games. We break down all 4 of them on the NBA show. It's on Wager Talk TV right now. But I do have a strong college basketball best bet, also a bonus free play on my page right now. That single play is $25 as always, or you can get every week for the next year for just $23 a week, just $3 a day, just $1 a play. The Super Bowl to Super Bowl special is live, and you don't have to wait until Super Bowl Sunday. Sign up now. You get the next 10 days and nights included for free. No promo code needed. Check all that out right now. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. All right, one of those NBA free play videos I gave you last night on Wednesday was the Miami Heat. Joe Ranieri's Miami Heat. And I said, I don't like to try to catch a falling knife. They'd lost 7 in a row. But then I said they really weren't a falling knife because they were still at a winning record and they were in first place. I called them a falling dagger. And the Heat won and cashed. Old Dominion is a falling knife, my friends. And this is the epitome of a falling knife. And we are not going to try to catch it tonight. Take a look at Marshall minus the 9. Here's why Old Dominion is a falling knife. There are 362 point spread teams, or 362 Division I teams, basically point spreads in all those teams now. Nobody has a worse point spread record this year than Old Dominion. 4-16 against the number, and they've only won 5 games straight up. And you might say, oh, well, there's value. There's not. They are a falling knife, and they've only covered once over the past month. And guess who that just happened to be against? That was Marshall. That's right. Old Dominion entered that game on a 0-6 straight up at ATS run. They upset Marshall 2 weeks ago, exactly 2 Thursdays ago, and they've since gone 0-3 straight up in ATS, which means Old Dominion is 1-9 ATS. It's straight up their last 10, and the only win was against Marshall by 25 points. Yet they trailed at halftime. It was a very misleading win for a couple reasons. First of all, they trailed by 4 at the half. Marshall on the road shot just 22% from three-point range. Old Dominion shot 43.5% from three-point range. Marshall actually got to the free throw line 8 times more on the road, but they had 8 more turnovers. Weird result. Marshall's the better team, and they will not overlook the worst point spread team in the country here because they have revenge. And then to top it off, well, Adam, myself, and Joe were talking about before the show. Brian Power had mentioned this as well. Old Dominion just dismissed their best player, a freshman from Toronto, Ontario. I'm blaming the Prez. Aled is no longer on the team. Leading scorer, 17 points a game. He is gone. And by the way, he did have a good game against Old Dominion a couple weeks ago. He put up 27 points, but he had a season high 40 points, rebounds, and assists. That's gone tonight. And they're not going to get a bump. You say, well, maybe they get a bump first game without their star player. Nope. He didn't play against Georgia Southern this past Saturday. And yes, Old Dominion only lost by 6, but they were a 5-point home favorite. Georgia Southern had only won like 3 or 4 games all season going into that game. So Old Dominion is still a falling knife. Don't try to catch it or you might get cut. If you're going to play this game, the only way to play it is to lay it with Marshall minus 9 tonight. And that's on Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah, can't be looking at Old Dominion here. Absolutely a falling knife. And we do have our friends at the Gold Sheet, another best bet coming your way, and they are going to look at St. Thomas and Nebraska Omaha here tonight. They're going to lay the 2 points at Nebraska Omaha, with St. Thomas having won each of the last 4 meetings. Not even close to, by an average of 11.5 points per game. Omaha coming off a nice 72 possession affair at elevation against Denver, coming down here a little bit. And 6 of St. Thomas's 8 losses this season have all come by less than 5 points. So when you put it all together, St. Thomas at a small number there, handling business against Nebraska, Omaha, and we encourage you guys to visit our friends at goldsheet.com. Great write-ups, great information, all the stats you need to know. before making your bets. Just a couple of clicks away there. So head over to goldsheet.com and check it out. All right, to recap one more time, we've got Merrill going Marshall, lay the 9 against Old Dominion. Triggs going Hampton. He'll take the 5 points. The market is starting to agree with him, so make sure you check that out. And our friends at the Gold Sheet, they're going to go St. Thomas laying that too. You heard Trig tell you a lot of stuff on the card here tonight in 65 games. Head over there. He's got a couple already locked and loaded, as does Steve Merrill. Great opportunity, guys, for you to partner up with both of these guys right now. Not to mention, of course, there's another big football game still coming up. Both guys will be heavily invested in that as well. So there you got it. We got much more heading into another huge weekend of college hoops. We'll be back again tomorrow with another edition of the College Basketball Tip-Off Show. Until then, best of luck with all your plays. We'll talk to you again soon. Good luck.